Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Stevens. I am the Director of Neighborhood Development and Outreach with Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development, the Development Division. We are extremely excited, and this has been a long time plan to offer sites that are city-owned in Baltimore City for urban agriculture. In this particular request for proposal, we are partnering with the Department of Planning and the Office of Sustainability. And today we are going to share with you our request for proposal for urban agriculture. The release for this proposal was September 19th. Today we are hosting the pre-proposal conference where we will go over details about what we are looking for, and the deadline for submission is November 16th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next slide, please. So the request for proposal this is the first time Baltimore City has done this. So we are really excited and looking for some creative proposals to come in for review by our group of experts and participants in the urban farm population in Baltimore City. And we are seeking specific proposals to purchase city-owned land for the use of urban agriculture. On the call and presenting with you today are our two leads who many of you all are probably familiar with, Ms. Abby Koch, who is our environmental planner with the Office of Sustainability, and Ms. Kimberly Knox, who is our greening coordinator and city planner with the Department of Planning. At this point, I'm going to ask that we move to the next slide and turn it over to Abby to share detail about urban agriculture.
Hello, everyone. Really excited to be here. For the purposes of this request for proposals, we're defining urban agriculture very broadly, as you can see. It's not just about food production. Obviously, that's something that we think is important for lots of different reasons. But if you want to do a flower farm or grow ornamental or native plants or trees for sale, if you want to try your hand at growing hops or doing a tiny little vineyard or a fig orchard or something, if you want to raise chickens, goats, as long as you're adhering to the rules of the health department for animal keeping. And on the previous slide, you'll find a link to where you find those regulations and others related to ag. But yeah, you can all see the list here. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I just want to make it clear that the reason it's so long is because we really do want to see creative ideas. And if you want to do a traditional vegetable farm, great. If you want to do something that maybe has never been seen in the city of Baltimore too, great. Just tell us about it. And that last bullet there, education, economic development, community-based programming, that's something that we're also very, very interested in seeing. Not that you can't do a straight, sort of business that provides other sort of benefits to the community in an economic way. But yeah, we consider that part of the realm of what urban ag looks like in Baltimore City too. So I think we can go on to the next slide.
So my name is Kim Knox. I'm the greening coordinator for the Baltimore Green Network, which is an initiative of the Baltimore Department of Planning. And I am under the Community Planning and Revitalization Division. So we're thrilled you're here because this is a milestone. You can say I was there first to see the request for proposals for urban ag in the city of Baltimore. So a request for proposals is a formal method where city seeks to leverage their creativity and the knowledge of people like you to provide a solution to these beautiful spots that could become part of your urban agriculture operation. The proposals must be submitted in accordance with the instructions that you see on the request for proposals. And I know you have the link that was given in terms of the registration when you were registering. Proposers must provide all required information and clearly and concisely respond to all points in the RFP, because that's what you're being judged on. How did you answer the questions that were in the RFP? clearly and concisely makes it very easy for people to do that. And Abby has, thank you, put in the link of where the request for proposal is. Now, the bidding is open to interested and qualified bidders who meet Department of Housing and Community Development's requirements as defined in the RFP. And I believe it's in the next slide. So the request overview is the community vision in terms of and participation. Urban ag is something that community, either communities love or communities need to learn about. And so respondents are encouraged to meet the local community members to discuss community concerns or questions. You also need to have the intent of offering. So on this call are some wonderful neighborhood development officers from Baltimore Department of Housing Community Development. And so if you have any questions, they can answer those questions, but we're looking for people, either nonprofits or individuals or for-profit who want to purchase and develop the site in accordance with the goals of the city and of course the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development in a way that complements and adds value to the community. Those who are living around these sites at all farms own their home, have invested their dollars, and you want to make sure that you're working closely with the community and the community members living around the site because you obviously are hopefully adding and complementing value to the community, but they also have great insights that they would want to share. And last but not least, the properties are offered and as is condition. What you see, you'll get to have the entire property as is when you purchase this property. Next slide.
Okay, so what is in this request for proposals? What are we requesting? That link that I put in the chat to the Department of Housing website will take you to a page that goes over the types of agriculture we're looking for that were on the previous slide. And then you'll see bolded right before some maps, it'll say RFP instructions and details. And if you click on that, it's actually the document needs to be updated. There's a couple of pieces that are in reference to the last RFP that was put out need to be updated for this one, but I believe that should be happening no later than tomorrow. But the vast majority of what's in there is accurate to this RFP. It starts with some general talking about how important community visioning and participation is and our intent. But when you get down into the submission requirements, the first thing is a letter of interest. And the way this is discussed in that guidance document is a little bit as if it's a formality. It talks about you have to list out the members of your team and identify who the primary contact person is with a phone number and an email address. The letter has to be signed by the authorized principal of your firm. If you're a business or a nonprofit, that would be whomever is the president or CEO or what have you. If you're applying as an individual, it would be yourself. And it also has to include a statement that the proposal will remain valid for not less than 180 days from the date of the approval of the selection of the respondent. So you'll see more about our timeline soon. We're planning to try to select applicants in the winter. But basically, you're saying that then through the summer, you're committing that what you said you would still be willing to do. But the letter of intent also can and should be more than those basic requirements. This letter will actually be shared with community groups. If we say, okay, we do think that this proposal meets our standards, let's take it, to neighborhood folks to look at. That letter will be one of the things that they get to review. So this is an opportunity to talk, don't go on and on forever. You want people to actually be able to read it, a page or two max, but talk about who you are, why you want to do this, where you're from, what your stake in the community you see as being either now or in the future, and what you hope to provide, just like a little summary statement of everything else that's going to be included in the RFP. The next piece is your project description. This is, we're looking for a brief summary of your project. What is your vision, your concept for what you would do with this property? You can do that in the form of a narrative, you know, a few paragraphs. It's a maximum of 500 words allowed in that like little box where you fill in the text on the application, and that's about a page. There is a place for you to upload files, and that's you're allowed to include preliminary illustrations or plans, sketches. You know, it doesn't have to be formal, but just something to give us a little bit better of an idea of what you're proposing. So you can upload that there where it says upload project description. Or if you've got a little bit more to say and that 500 word max in the text box isn't working, you can in fact put your narrative in the thing you upload and go a little bit further, but please try to keep it as close to one page as possible for the sake of the reviewers. You know, conciseness is a virtue. Right after that, there's a text box asking you purchase or lease. Please use this space to share details about your offer price for the property. Applicants must agree to no less than a 3-year lease with an option to purchase. Purchase is preferred. So what we're saying here is that the goal is truly to get land out of the city's hands and put it in the control of people who are doing urban agriculture. Now, you know, where do you start with an offer price? We're not necessarily looking for fair market value here. I'm not saying we wouldn't take it. But we know that that might not be within everybody's, you know, budget and financing plan, which we'll get to in a moment. But, you know, if you're planning to run a business and you're coming in with like business type financing, there will be a different expectation than if you're coming in as a nonprofit or as an individual, maybe as a community member yourself, where we would be willing to consider, you know, something much less than what we would take from a business. But we're not providing strict guidance on that. Tell us what you think that you can do. As I read out to you, there is an option to start with a lease and move to purchase, but we're asking that people plan on doing the leasing part more on a short-term basis, maybe 3 years, and then we would revisit the purchasing conversation. Okay, so getting down into the the third section, budget and financing. So there's a number of uploads that you're asked to do here, and a little bit of explanation in that instructions and details guide about what each of them means. So we'll just go through them quickly. The first piece that you'll be asked for is a financing plan. And this is sort of an analysis overview of the costs, the sources that they're going to come from. You know, what's your market analysis? I'm not going to read you every word in here. You'll be able to go in and read this yourself. The next piece is your budget and your pro forma. So that's, you know, what are your costs in terms of potentially like wood and soil or chicken wire and whatnot would be in your budget. And then your pro forma is more along the lines of over the course of the year, what money is going out, what money is coming in, how does that balance? The next piece is your operating and financing guarantees. And that's, you know, where is this money coming from? What are you applying to? If there's grant applications or loan applications potentially in play, what are the deadlines on those things? When did you hear about them? You get the idea. Development budgets as the next upload, and that refers more to costs related to getting to the point where you could get started. So that could be things like urban agriculture is a conditional use in all of these properties in terms of their zoning district. So you would have to go before the zoning board, pay, I believe it's about a $250 fee. There might be some minor plans preparation that would be involved. So those sorts of costs. We are open to projects that would fit more in the community managed open space category, which is a permitted use where you wouldn't have to do quite so much in terms of zoning. But anything that's a business would certainly fall into the conditional use urban ag category. But I digress. Finally, there's an upload for sources and uses statement, and that's you know, just sort of reiterating what you expect to be coming in, you know, what's committed, what's hoped for, and then where, you know, how it would be spent. And development timeline is, you know, when you would be aiming to break ground and, you know, do the things that you're proposing, actually have the project completed, start potentially bringing in funds if you're planning on doing sales. So a lot of different uploads, and I think it could look very intimidating. The template for this application came from a more traditional development standpoint, but just know that we understand that, you know, for the most part, we're going to be working with farmers and not traditional developers. And, you know, do the best job you can, read through the RFP instructions, provide the things that we've asked for, but don't be too freaked out and say, well, I've never done a sources and uses statement before, so I'm just can't do this. Like, please don't take it that way. The next section is on farmer capacity, although I think here on the application it says developer capacity, but we mean farmer capacity. So we want the names of everybody on your team, their role, experience, what capacity they would be serving in. Again, you could be coming into this as an individual, but it's always stronger with the team, right? And we very much want at least one person on your team with at least a year of farm production experience. So that's not just growing in your backyard or in a community garden for yourself or your family, but growing for the purpose of growing more than you can eat to distribute. And that doesn't need to have been for sale per se. It could have been, you know, as a garden or farm that was attached to a restaurant, or that was all for donation. But the point is you're producing. Then there's places, and this is if applicable, for listing information for a marketing agent, for a general contractor, for a consultant. We understand that that might not be how everybody's set up. It's okay if you don't have those people, but if you do, you can fill them in there. There is an owned property disclosure upload, and that's where you put a list of any properties that you have owned or sold in the past 5 years in Baltimore City or elsewhere. Then it asks for a list of minority and women-owned businesses and contractors who will be asked to participate in this work. And if you refer to the more detailed instructions, it also says that you should indicate whether such firms are currently registered with the city as minority and women-owned businesses, and the percentage of ownership of the final development by such firms. So is this 100% a POC-owned project or a women-owned project? Is it like a 50% stake thing? Are they not owning anything potentially, but supporting as a contractor in some kind of way? And then we ask you to indicate any additional steps that you're going to be taking to maximize minority participation in developing the project, operating it, employing people. There's an Employ Baltimore certification form for you to fill out. And then I'm gonna hand it over to my lovely colleague, Kim Knox, for the next few sections.
Great. So the next one is community benefits. If you could go back, Kelly, that'd be great. The community and economic inclusion. And that's where you're going to be, again, the key is involving the community at the beginning, from the very start, before you put in the RFP. How have you talked to the community? Have you spoken to the people living around the property? Any businesses nearby? How have you engaged the community and incorporated, you know, listen to their vision, incorporated what they saw in terms of the site? Maybe there's a history that, you know, they're proud of in terms of that site. So that's a key, is what's your community and economic inclusion within your proposal. And then what's your community participation? So are you going to be attending the monthly meetings? How are you going to keep the neighborhood leaders abreast? If there's jobs available, how are you going to post the jobs so that maybe people within the community might be interested in applying? So the key would also be making sure the approach and the methods that you are using to include the residents of the neighborhood, the community stakeholders in the planning and the implementation of the program, as well as how are you going to address any concerns that they might have about your site. And then Abby did a marvelous job of talking about minority and business enterprise participation. Of course, providing a list of the minority and women-owned businesses and contractors who will be participating in the work, any additional steps that you'll be taken by the community development team to maximize minority participation in the stages of development and operation and employment of the urban agriculture enterprise that you're going to be doing. And lastly, but not least, is community participation. Are you going to have any, how are you going to, your site's going to be in, or all of them are in residential communities. So they might be interested in coming and learning more about what you're doing. So are you going to have events at the site? Are you planning to do any type of workshops for the community? What type of participation are you planning in order to involve the community who live there for sometimes generations, to learn about you and to learn about that site as you continue to grow your business at these locations? So thank you. We'll go to the next slide. So how are you going to be judged? How are you to make this a scorecard? Well, number one, the quality of the development of the concept. So be sure to be, as Gabby noted, be succinct, but be clear on what you plan to do at the site and how it's going to add value. Why this purchase will not only provide an opportunity for you to own property or lease the property, but how you're going to be helping the community with your vision and using and incorporating the community vision in your development of and maintenance and ongoing operations of the site. Your project feasibility. Have you done this before? Do you know of other places that have done this? Even if it's an innovative, how do you make sure that your investment is going to be working? Because not only are you investing your dollars, but we're also investing. You're going to be a groundbreaking organization who's going to be part of the first RFP for urban agriculture in Baltimore. So we want to make sure that you're going to be successful. Next is your farmer capacity and experience. And as Abby stated, we want to make sure that someone on your team shows experience of several years of farming and that they've been successful, because as we know, August can be a tough time to be a farmer. So Abby, it looks like you wanted to say something. Okay, and how are you going to make sure that farmer capacity and experience are going to guide this agriculture operation, whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, or individual, for successful each and every year? And then the benefits to the city, and that's why we're here. How does this benefit the city, and how does it benefit everybody around where the operation is going to be, as well as the entire community and entire city? So, and then the benefits to the community, we talked about that. In terms of, are you going to have workshops? Are you going to have food giveaways? How are you going to engage the community? And of course, the economic and community inclusion. And we spoke about how you're going to make sure that any local hiring activities that would lead to workforce opportunities for the community or city residents, and how are you going to provide the opportunity, provide economic inclusion for the neighborhood that you're in. So shall we go to the next one? Next slide. So here's the good news. You are at the RFP pre-proposal right now. So give yourselves a hand. You're getting some great information. If you want to, we want to see this again, you can go on to DHC's Facebook page. Is a great with great information. But the key date that you don't want to forget is that the RFP is due. You need to submit it by November the 16th, this November 16th, 2022, by 11:59 p.m. If midnight strikes and you haven't submitted it, I'm so sorry, but you want to make sure. And if I put in grants every single week, if I could just give you a little hint. It's always good to put it in a little bit earlier than 11:59 on the day it's due, because you never know when the portal might go down. Been there, done that. Don't want to buy the t-shirt. So if you have any questions, we're asking you to provide written questions to us, to city, by October 7th at 3 p.m. So this Friday at 3 p.m. And that way the questions and answers will be posted on the DHC website in order for everybody to learn from your questions or interested in participating in this RFP. And that will, so you'll email your questions at developmentinfo, all one word, developmentinfo@baltimorecity.gov. Additional inquiries and questions after October 7th at 3 p.m. are still welcome. They just won't be posted online. So for now, great. We go to the next session, and Ms. Teresa has the floor on the next slide.
Actually, my colleague and team is on the call, and I did not introduce Kelly Bacala, Nikki Cooper Moore, and Robin Ayeli. I also see from Department of Planning, Kyle Leggs, if Imani Jaspers is on here, and Carmen Morazan. But Kelly Bacala is going to take the lead on sharing how to use our site and submit your application.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. And hello, everybody again. My name is Kelly, and I'm going to tell you how to use our website. So we have this great brand new website. Some of you may be familiar with it. We've had it for a few months now. It's called Buy Into Be More. So you can go to our website, buyintobemore.baltimorecity.gov. And as soon as you go to the site, this screen is going to pop up that you see right here, and you are going to look for the Urban Agriculture RFP, which is right in the circle in the bottom. If you're interested in other programs, you can see those properties as well if you want to click on that, but we're focusing on urban agriculture. So we're going to click on that button, and then we're going to click on the next slide. There we go. Okay, and that's going to take you to the screen. Now, it does look comically small. So I can see the dots because I know where they are, but I can understand if you're looking at this going, where are they? So what you want to do first is drop down the programs tab right here, and hopefully only RFP Urban Agriculture will be checked. So this is only going to show you properties that are currently available on our Urban Agriculture RFP. And there are green dots, I promise. As you can see, land is green dots. So there's one right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I am pointing to them right now. So here are a few of them. So they are there, and you can zoom in on them, get some information. I'm going to go to the next slide. So here's some of the information. You're going to click on the property that you're interested in. You don't need to click each individual lot. You can just click one in the parcel, and that will put the whole parcel or the whole set of properties into your cart. So you don't need to click each individual lot. Once it's in the cart, you'll see we'll have one selected, or however many selected that you're intending to apply for. And this RFP agriculture will come up. And you're going to click apply, and that is going to take you to our RFP application, which is what Abby and Kim just spoke about. And this is where you're going to fill out your application. So it will take you directly to the site. You can fill it out. Again, you only need to fill it out for one of the parcel properties, not all the parcel properties. We understand that you are applying for, and you can only apply for all of them too. You can't, we aren't accepting applications for part of a parcel. You do have to apply for all of them. But by clicking on one, you are submitting your application for all of those in that particular parcel. I realize my camera's off and I've been making hand gestures, but that's the fun of Zoom. So sorry about that, guys. So with that, we'll move on to some of the sites. Kim, are you going to be talking about these, or would you like me to?
Yes, I have the opportunity of speaking about these wonderful sites.
Fantastic. I will let you enjoy, please.
Thank you. So here we are. Let me give you a tour of where your new farm or agroforestry operation, or your agrovoltaics, or your horticulture operations. You dream it, this could be yours. It is 76035 Walther and 643 Walther. Even they're right next to each other in one beautiful parcel that could be yours. This property, located in the Rosemont neighborhood, it used to be a multifamily building, and when they were demolished, they would occupy both of these lots. The parcel has a mainly open exposure from the west and north side. On the west and south side limits exposure from the sun at those angles. The elevation is highest at the northwest corner at 254 feet in elevation, to the lowest point being at the southwest corner at 218. So that provides you with this 110,816 square foot parcel that could be yours if you put in the right proposal. It is currently zoned at R5, and of course, it is in the Rosemont community. And this is a picture. And as Kelly was saying, this is all one parcel. When you put your option, either your price or your lease on it, you'll get both of these lots in that parcel. Next. Oh, wait a minute. If you have any questions, you can go to the neighborhood development research with Kelly Bacala or the community planner comment on the slide. And those emails are online, or on the slide. So, and we go to the next one, which is at 47274733 Reisterstown Road. Look at that flat and sunny site. This could be yours for your operation. Full sun on all sides except for the eastern or the back boundary. There is an area that has gravel on the south side, so maybe that's where you can put your equipment. One shade tree is located in the northwest corner of the lot, with another large tree on the southeast corner of the lot. So when it gets to be August and July, you'll have shade. The elevation goes from 420 to 422, so that's pretty nice and flat. Zoning is R6. The lot size is 15,854 square feet, and this is located in Central Park Heights, right there on Reisterstown Road. Kelly is also the neighborhood development officer for this, and as you can see there, here's her email. And then the community planner is Micah Zaslow, and Micah's email is on there as well. So this nice flat spot located in Central Park Heights with a lot size of 15,854 square feet could be yours if you have the winning proposal. And the next one, there we go. The next one is 502 Frederick to 110 South Wickham and 2 South Wickham, located in 10 Hills neighborhood. The property has a number of trees that would all fall under the Forest Conservation Act, which means that you would need to keep them or figure out how work with the Forest Conservation Act on about the site. There is also a number of large dead trees that would need to be removed. The boundary.
Dead trees.
They're not dead trees? Okay. Well, this is a great place to go and look if you're interested to see the tree, both the live trees, because it's under the Forest Conservation Act, and what might be needed if there are any dead trees on the property. The boundary along Frederick Avenue is at times in the well, it is in the floodplain. So it means that sometimes it gets flooded, but it's in the floodplain. The lowest elevation is 198 feet along Frederick Avenue, which is the south boundary, to 240 feet on the northern boundary. So that it tells you there's a 42 difference in elevation. The area with the most amount of direct sunlight is in the southern edge of the parcel, so along Frederick Avenue. This is zoned at its R5. This is a 4.98 acres, so almost 5 acres. The neighborhood again is 10 Hills. Robin Ale at baltimorecity.gov is the neighborhood development officer, always great fountain of information. And the community planner who is on the line is Kyle Legs at baltimorecity.gov. So these three lots are in one parcel, and when you put that successful bid in, you would get those three parcels that are adjoining each other all in one package. So the last and certainly not least is coming up. And that is 1720 to 1736 Terrell Place in Broadway East. These 9 city-owned lots are surrounded to the north, east, and west by backs of row homes. The row homes shade the perimeter of these lots. To the south, there are 9 vacant lots that are a mix of privately and publicly owned lots that are not available for purchase or lease. Because there are privately owned lots, we cannot have the sites for purchase or lease. The parcels have a slight southern incline. The location was actually chosen by New Broadway East Community Association as a good location for urban agriculture site in their neighborhood. So they're eager to have urban agriculture in their neighborhood here at 1720 to 1736 Terrell Place, which is has a square feet of 54,734 square feet. It is zoned for R8. And again, you can see the site mostly available for agriculture purposes, with a few shade trees that you might want to enjoy when it's after a long hot day in the sun. And can we go to the next slide? Marvelous, great. I believe the next person who speaks on this is Kelly. Is that correct? Or is that? Well, you want me to?
I can.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah. So guess what? You've done the first thing. You've gotten the great information from this pre-proposal virtual conference. The RFP submission is on November the 16th. November the 16th at midnight. But remember, you're going to because you guys are so smart, you're even doing the pre-bid. You're going to make sure you do it before the 11:59. And then we'll go into review panels. In December, we will be doing review panels. Then in January and February, we'll do community presentations. So if you're one of the top top bids, we'll be asking you to do a community presentation to the community, and then we'll be doing an interview with the top interviews and scoring with the top developers. And in March and April, we'll be doing an award announcement. We worked very hard to make sure that the announcement would be in the spring when all farmers are thinking about planting and getting ready for a very successful year. And the next slide. Yep. Thank you so much for coming. Shall we start with the questions?
Yeah, and I believe I'm meant to be refereeing the Q&A. Yes, I'm looking at the chat now.
Yes.
So Samia asked, will the PowerPoint be made available later via email? And Teresa replied that it will be posted on our YouTube channel and shared the link. So that is how you can view the presentation. I think there was maybe one more useful link in there that you wouldn't be able to access that way, and that was to the Office of Sustainability website, to that page with all the regulations about agriculture. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat now. Next up, RFP is not clear on eligible applicants. Can you please cover this aspect of the RFP in more detail? So I mentioned that we're looking for people with at least a year of farm production experience. Kelly, Kim, to your knowledge, are there any other like threshold, you gotta get to at least here to even be eligible criteria that people should be aware of?
Is my sound on? Hold on.
So
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
there isn't any liens on your properties that you own in
Right.
Baltimore. Is that correct, Kelly?
Absolutely, yes. You want to make sure you have no outstanding liens or judgments against you or the business that you are applying for. They will check both. You want to make sure that the funding that you are stating is required, that you have a way to provide that funding. So whether you have it, we understand some people are waiting on grants. It's okay if you don't have all of your funding together, but you need to have a plan for your funding, and it has to be, within reason. And we do want to see, that people do have some skin in the game, that they're not relying on a single grant, that they're going to a few different places or financing, in some other way. Obviously, this is a business, so I expect people do have a little more of a financing concept. But yeah, that would be what we're looking for as far as threshold. And also, I'm not sure, you would probably be better to answer this, Abby or Kim, as to just what qualifies as a person to be an urban farmer, or does
At least 1 year of farm production experience.
Does the organization qualify, would be more in your territory?
Yeah, you got to have at least one person on your team with at least 1 year of farm production experience. So thank you, Kelly. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is who has liability if the land currently has environmental issues? And I'll touch on another question, at least in part, that was further down in the chat about soil testing. We have not performed soil testing at any of these sites. I can say that between the Safe Urban Harvest study that Johns Hopkins did of all the farms and gardens in town, where 90+% of sites, there were no dangerous soil issues, at least in terms of heavy metals that were found, and an EPA brownfields project that we did where we were looking at sites that were of interest for greening and doing more in-depth studies, and not finding anything of great concern. That is in no way to say that there could not be a serious environmental issue. We're dealing with sites that were previously residential, I think, in all cases. So we're not looking at old paint factories, old gas stations, old laundromats. But we also have not necessarily done the type of research that you would want to do to go through the whole history of everything that was ever on a site. That link that I put in the chat most recently to the baltimoresustainability.org website, you'll find on there the city's soil safety policy that walks through how you can do a DIY soil safety assessment, where to find those historical records and things. So all of that is to say you are responsible. We are not responsible. These sites are being offered as is. We're not doing any testing or cleanup at the current time.
Exactly. 50002 Frederick was a hospital.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you very much.
But you're right, Abby. It as is.
So all that context, that we have no reason to think that there are any like big scary surprises, but no guarantees. Tia asks, does the Department of Housing have a team to review the proposal as a draft? I'm a new grant writer that is looking for mentorship. I think it's okay for me to call her out about this. Neith Little is on the call, who is the urban agriculture agent from the University of Maryland Extension Service, and private messaged me to say that she would be willing to offer to read and review farmers' proposals before they submit, because that's exactly what she does in terms of offering technical assistance. She also mentioned someone else's name who might be able to help, but I am not comfortable volunteering that person who did not direct message me. So Nia, you want to maybe put your email in the chat? But yeah, as reviewers, we can't do that in advance for you. I'm sorry. You also asked, does the Department of Housing have support or resources to enhance grant writing skills in relation to agriculture proposals? That's a great question. Kim Knox has offered a sort of grant writing for greening projects workshop before that was very well received. I don't know if there's a plan to repeat that. I've done a Grants 101 type workshop once or twice. So I don't think we have anything on the calendar currently, but do keep your eyes open and look for sources like the Community Law Center They're very helpful with things like that. And there's other folks out there doing that work. So Leslie, and I referenced this earlier, window is a bit short to obtain a soil test report. Would the proposer be able to withdraw the RFP if the soil has environmental issues? Yeah, so there's nothing stopping you, as Leslie implies, from going now to one of these sites and scooping up some soil and sending it up to the University of Philadelphia or wherever, Pennsylvania. Again, you can find there are soil safety guidelines, public universities that will do soil safety tests for you, but it is in fact a relatively short turnaround time at this point. So that's a really good question though, of we say, well, you got to commit that this will be good for at least 180 days. But are there circumstances under which you could back out of that, or are there any consequences at all if you just back out anyway, even though you signed something saying that you wouldn't? Or can it be withdrawn in the case of like unforeseen, this makes the whole thing impossible in this? Kelly, do you have any insight on that?
I will only speak from my experience with RFPs in general and say that there are occasionally extenuating circumstances that result in people not being able to go through with the transaction. And at that point, we would just, you know, we would open a dialogue, you know, with the applicant or awardee if it's at that stage, and see, you know, what is the best way to move forward. We're partners in this, you know, we look at all of you as working together on this program because, as Kim said, you know, it is this brand new thing and, you know, we want to grow together. So we are going to work together as much as we can with the awardees, you know, with any issues that may arise on their site, you know, as it relates to the sale. But there are clauses in our contracts for being able to get out of them for certain circumstances. And I'm sure, especially for farming, environmental would definitely be covered under that as a reason.
That said, there is always the option to put down a barrier and build up.
Yes.
You know, and just not use the existing soil. I know that a lot of people have strong feelings about the existing soil. And again, it's been proven pretty conclusively that in the vast, vast majority of cases, we are in fact good to use our existing soil. We are not poisoning ourselves. Let me go on to the next question though. How many years would you like the pro forma to reflect? My take on that is, you know, obviously we got to see at least year one. But it would be very interesting because most times the year one looks different than what you expect years 2, 3, etc. to look like. So I'd also like to see, you know, like basically up until when you expect things to stabilize. Like, so maybe 3 years would be useful. But we don't have a hard requirement about that. Again, Kelly, any further input?
I would agree. I think that's correct.
So minimum 1, up to 3 would be good. If you wanted to go further out from that, you could, but that'd be a bit speculative.
If you're an established program that's just going to be continuing an existing program, you know, 1 year might be fine. You know, if there's not growth that you intend to have, if this is just an expansion, but definitely if you're creating something, you know, as Abby said, we're going to need to see how you plan out, you know, the future.
Next question was, any idea when the next properties might be offered? I'm very glad you asked, Leslie, because it was on my mind to mention that if you don't feel ready at this time for this process, or if these particular sites, like you want them to be right, but you know that they're not in fact quite right for you, we do intend to do this again. We identified about twice as many sites as we're offering that we thought could be good candidates, but we wanted to make this manageable for everybody, for you, for us. There is not a hard timeline. I can't say like, oh, in the spring, there'll be another offering. In fall 2023, there'll be another offering. We're going to see how this goes and what changes we might need to make to the process and then reassess. But it is the intention, I would hope, sometime, you know, next year to do another offering. Next question.
One thing, it wasn't a question, but thank you, Kelly, for noting that Micah Zaslow at BaltimoreCity.gov is MIKH.ZASLOW at BaltimoreCity.gov, and she is the community planner for the Reisterstown location. Sorry, thanks.
All good. I see that Aaliyah from Towson is looking to partner. Thank you, Aaliyah. And blah, blah, blah. In case anybody didn't see it, it didn't come up earlier, so I mentioned in the chat, there is in fact a $50 application fee per submission. You can submit a proposal for just one property, you could submit for all 4, but when you hit submit, you will be asked to pay $50 and possibly a small service fee. And just know that traditional developers are typically asked to pay 5 times that amount, so it's not 0, but we tried to make it relatively nominal. Urban Equity asks, is there electricity access at these lots? No, not to my knowledge. There's no current utility hookups, either water or electricity. And there has not been a study done to investigate, you know, to estimate what the costs would be. So for example, on Reisterstown Road, you know, it might be a little easier to connect into a water main than into Rel Place, where it's behind the houses and you got to pull a line further. So that would be something to consider. I know I'm talking about water now, not electricity, but the same rules may apply. But no, there's not currently electricity access on these lots. There was a private question to me, but I'm just going to answer it publicly. I hope that's cool. What type of urban farming systems are encouraged? Traditional outdoor, greenhouses, hydroponic? And truly, 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 I meant what I said, that we're open to everything. I am agnostic on whether hydroponic growing is better than in-soil growing, is better than greenhouse growing. You know, you're the experts, and people are coming up with new ways to do it all the time. That said, we do have a whole sustainability plan for the city, and we talk about wanting, you know, you look at the urban agriculture chapter of the sustainability plan, and I'll put a link to that in the chat too. But we talk about wanting to see farming that's environmentally sustainable, that's economically inclusive, that provides, you know, food that's culturally appropriate and desirable and affordable. And you can't necessarily do all those things, you know, but that's what is desirable to us and encouraged, not the particular format that you use to get there. Next question, what if your family has an existing farm in another state and you are a legacy farmer? Well, then that would be excellent information to include in that bit about the team members and their experience and capacity. Yeah, it sounds like you would probably have years of farm production experience, and that's extremely relevant. So do tell us all about it. Tariq asks, are any of these properties eligible for developing a facility for manufacturing industrial fertilizers? And I am completely stumped. I could have answered your question at least a little tiny bit if it was about industrial composting. But manufacturing of fertilizers has just never come up in my life before this moment.
But we do have several community planners who might be on the line. Does anybody from planning?
It would definitely be like a zoning permitting type thing to look up. But yeah, going once, going twice. Does anybody happen to know the answer to this question?
Okay, well, we will look it up and find that out for you.
Where's Martin French when you need him?
That's right.
Okay.
Again,
so yeah, this would be a question to have in more detail with the, or a conversation to have in more detail with the planning department. Corinne asks, has any community engagement about this proposed farm? I think maybe your question might be missing a word or two. Corinne, do you want to clarify? You can come off mute if you like. But I think I can try to address what I think it means. So has any community engagement happened about these proposed farms so far? We have been in contact with all the community groups. And this is a good time for me to mention about the Frederick and Wickham site. So I know that's a very attractive one, nice big green square. And I don't know that this was listed anywhere. I think it should be in that PDF that's getting uploaded tomorrow, because we discussed that. But it's important to know the community groups around that site have requested a more passive types uses. So less like, you know, cover it all in gravel and put a bunch of hoop houses on it and do an intensive commercial farm with trucks coming in and out all the time. And more, you know, do a nice border with flowers and set it back ways and have something smaller happening. And I am realizing that I am getting too specific because I shouldn't be putting ideas in your head and like guiding you as to what we're looking for. But they are looking there for something less intensive, more like beautification and passive use. Not that there couldn't be food growing on it. We wouldn't have included that if that were a no. But that's what's going on with that site. And it is in the Penn Hills neighborhood, but the Tremont Community Association adjacent to it would also be good to talk to. The Broadway East community, as Kim mentioned, actually suggested the Terrell site to us, and that's the only reason that it's in here. The Walther Avenue site, it's been a minute, but I've had previous conversations with the Rosemont community. I know there were others that happened more recently in relation to this RFP, but I'm speaking in relation to conversations I have had, and they were very enthusiastic about at that site. And the fourth site in Reisterstown, I know there were a couple of conversations with Park Heights Renaissance, which does a lot of community liaising in that neighborhood that led to the selection of that site in particular. So yes, there has been some community engagement, and you are welcome, to be clear, to go now and reach out to those community groups and say, hey, you want to have a chat. I see that Nia shared her and Isabella Bruno from Chesapeake Bay Foundation's info. Lovely to meet you, Isabella, and thank you for doing that, Nia. Tia asks for the Department of Housing site for leasing. They're all owned by the Department of Housing, for the record, or for lease. Can you submit an application for a property to lease that isn't correlated to the 4 allocated lots of this proposal? It's a great question for Kelly Bacala.
And the answer is no. We do not do leases typically. This is our first foray into leases. Planning did do a version of a lease that they operated, which I think is, I don't know if it is still happening, the homegrown lease, which Abby might be able to speak a little to. We do Adopt a Lot, which is a smaller program aimed at, well, I guess a larger program, but for a smaller scale, where you can essentially lease, I guess you could call it a lease, but it's a 1 to 3 year deal where you maintain a vacant lot that the city owns. But you specifically for those cannot sell produce or you cannot sell what you produce on those lots unless you have that homegrown lease. But the homegrown lease isn't part of our program specifically. That's part of the planning department. You would adopt the lot through us. But the homegrown lease is a little more through the planning department.
Partnership.
Yeah, it's a partnership, of course.
But yeah, we have done several of these, what we called homegrown Baltimore leases of housing department properties that the planning department facilitated the conversations about and the paperwork. That program is not formally closed. I do anticipate that if this RFP process seems like a better option, then we probably will just go with this going forward. But that is a different sort of process where we request your qualifications rather than proposals. We're not offering specific pieces of land through that program. We just want you to tell us who you are as a farmer, and then we'll talk to you about what's out there and if we could make something work. This offering is an explicit attempt to move away from those one-on-one trying to like make deals, conversations, and have it be a more open process. You can go to the Department of Housing and request to purchase something at any time though, right, Kelly?
Heck yeah, we would love to hear you if you are interested in purchasing land. Yes, come talk to us.
Thank you. And I see Bill Tharp from the Maryland Department of Agriculture is also offering to provide technical assistance in reviewing people's proposals, perhaps even helping and putting them together in the first place, who's to say, but he's a really great guy, and thank you so much, Bill, for that offer. Again, there is no electricity at these sites, that I'm afraid. What does a community planner do? What a great question. I'm gonna try to answer it real quick, and then Kim, you can tell me what I got wrong. But the planning department is split up into several divisions. I'm part of the Office of Sustainability, which is one of those divisions. One is community planning and revitalization. And a lot of the staff, not all, Kim is citywide, but a lot of those staff are split up into different districts, and they're the Northeast community planner or the Southwest community planner. And their job is to liaise between the community and all the different organs of city government and make sure that people are involved in planning processes and that any plans that do exist are being helped to move forward. Is that sort of correct, Kim?
Well, and we have the honor of having several community planners here. Mr. Mr. Kyle Leggs and is Amani Jasper. Is there anything you would like to add? And Carmen?
Hi, Kim. Hi, good evening all. Thanks for the little opening there. I'm Kyle Leggs. I'm the Southwest District Planner. I've got the property where the 5002 site is. So we do a number of things. We're a comprehensive planning division. So we look at development reviews as they occur in our neighborhood and advise developers as well as the community on matters such as this one tonight. We also get involved with the city's comprehensive planning as well as neighborhood planning. So we do a lot of neighborhood plans in conjunction with development plans. You touched on zoning earlier. If there's a zoning matter that pertains to us, we would be instrumental in helping you with whatever zoning types of questions you may have or requirements in that regard. We also look at things that may involve, to some degree, the capital budget, whether there are improvements around the city. We tried to advocate for community associations to be a part of the capital budgeting process. And we do a number of other things. It could be transportation-related types of planning. It could be more housing in general. It could be more just overall neighborhood development and revitalization efforts. But I say the biggest thing we do is try to help and revitalize the neighborhoods that we represent. And it could be up to 30 plus individual neighborhoods that we as community planners may represent. So hope that helps.
Very
Thank you
much
so
so. I'm so glad, yeah, that you were on, Kyle.
Sure, no problem.
And for the purposes of this RFP, what the community planner does is make sure that you know what the deal is with the community associations and personalities and important organizations and like the vibe and what people are looking for and how you could fit in because they're the experts.
Yeah, and I'll just add that for tonight's meeting as an example, we as the community planners may have provided the community associations to be a part of this meeting. And so we hope in that regard as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And the community planners were vital in helping us come up with our list of potential sites in the first place. Next question, could you repeat what we need to do in terms of rezoning? What zoning should we seek for erecting high-tech greenhouses? This is kind of a whole presentation and conversation in and of itself. The reason that I'm looking away at this other screen is because I just went to our webpage and tried to open the link to the details that we had pulled out about zoning just related to ag, and it wasn't working. So I'm uploading a new version. But let me see if I can say this as briefly as I can. In all of our residential zones, and these are all residentially zoned sites, urban agriculture is considered a conditional use. And you may see around town from time to time a sign up on a building that says there will be a zoning hearing on this date, you know, to see if the person who wants to do something here can do it, you know, open a daycare or what have you. And that's what that's about, is that you would have to put up a sign and say, I'm having a hearing at the zoning board. And then you got to go to them and they could put conditions on it. They could say, and the use is like basically considered innocent until proven guilty. Like they have to approve you unless, you know, somebody can show who has a stake in it, you know, adjacent property owner or business owner across the street or something that your use could negatively impact them. And then theoretically they could turn it down, like deny the completely. But my understanding is that is exceedingly rare, and that the reason it's called a conditional use is because they could put conditions on it. They could say you could only operate during certain hours, you have to be set back a certain number of feet from this other property, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the deal with zoning and ag. You will also be required to put together a what's called a soil conservation and water quality plan. This is an alternative plan to, like, you know, highly engineered, expensive drawings that would be required for stormwater management and erosion sediment control purposes for traditional development. but the Department of Public Works could tell you more about their requirements in that regard. It depends on what you're doing. You know, if you are simply cultivating the existing soil, it'll be a very different conversation than, again, if you're covering everything, you know, you're taking maybe a wooded parcel. Well, none of them are wooded parcels, but taking one of these lots and covering it with impervious surface, with gravel and hardscape and hoop houses and whatnot, that could really change the water flow in such a way that you could end up flooding out the street, you know, pretty crazy. So that's why they need you to come up with those kinds of plans, but they figured out a way to do it where you can get all the information from publicly accessible sources, get support in putting it together. So it doesn't need to be a big cost. I don't know about high-tech greenhouses. You asked what zoning should we seek for erecting high-tech greenhouses. To be clear, in terms of rezoning or seeking zoning, none of these properties need to be rezoned. They are all, agriculture is an allowable use in all of them. It's just a conditional use where there is this process I was describing. Greenhouses are allowed in agricultural uses. You would have to get a building permit to put in a foundation for it, and that's yet another process. But I cannot speak necessarily to the high techness or not thereof and how that could affect permitting requirements, but it shouldn't impact the zoning in any way. And I am happy, if desired, you know, to try to get better into my understanding of all these things with people. Although the community planners know a lot about zoning and permitting as well. Danielle asks, can the slide with the last property be shown again, please?
And that was 1720 to 1736 Terrell, Kelly. Maybe that was, yeah.
Yep, there it is. But if you go on the DHCD website, you will be able to find maps and descriptions of all these properties there as well. Although this is a little bit more comprehensive even. Christopher asks, do you know if the city has plans to request RFPs for other sites, perhaps next year and in the near future? Yes, in an ideal world, we'll be doing this again next year, no guarantee. Thank you for sharing your information, Tariq. I will say that of all the many different types of agriculture uses we were looking at, industrial fertilizer production was very much not one of them. You know, we're looking for growing of things or raising of things in the case of animals. I think this might be what you're proposing might be outside the scope of what we're looking for this proposal, and probably more appropriate for a light industrial or heavy industrial parcel, more so to be found along the Baltimore waterfront than in these residential neighborhoods. Like I'm looking at this picture of Terrell Place and imagining my backyard opening up onto an industrial chemical fertilizer facility, and I don't mean at all to denigrate your profession, but it's hard to see it being a good fit, and I just wanted to be honest about that. Why is the turnaround time for the initial RFP for these sites so short? A well-developed RFP can sometimes take many months. That is an excellent question. This has been in production for a minute, putting something like this out, and we wanted to make it possible for projects to happen in some kind of form before the end of the next calendar year. So that was part of our impetus. This is very much along the lines of the timeline that is offered by the housing department for traditional development projects. And your plan can be very conceptual at this point, you know, 500 word max, you know, we're asking for a couple of pages, a couple of budget documents, check some boxes. We don't want people to agonize over this, you know. We don't want to give people 6 months and then have them start raising funds and doing campaigns and lobbying, you know, the community associations and fighting each other and having it be a whole thing that you're devoting your life to. Like, don't spend more than another month and a half of your life on this, because we don't know what's going to happen with this. That's what I've got to say about that.
If I could just note that also we wanted to make sure that whoever gets these wonderful properties would be able to plant or start their operation in the spring, where every gardener, farmer, anyone with in agriculture or horticulture is dying to get their fingers into the dirt. So the next one is about what will disqualify an applicant. Maybe that's a Kelly question.
I think we addressed this earlier when we were saying what makes an eligible applicant. So you would be disqualified if you had undergone foreclosure or any of the other things that are on that list of, like, you've never, you know, done this or that, right? Or if you don't have anybody on your team with at least a year of farm production experience. Or if you don't respond fully to the RFP, if you skip questions, if you're late, if you're not responsive, you know, to the RFP.
The next
What-
was when there is a building on the site, it is assumed that it will be demolished to make space for urban ag. I believe you noted that it is as is. The site is as is, and there aren't any buildings on any of this property.
Christopher,
Some of the, excuse me, but some of the properties are showing, at least in Google, maybe they're gone. Some of the properties are showing build.
Yeah, they're all vacant lots. There aren't any buildings
all.
on these properties.
So the Google is old
Yes, that
version.
probably very could be, yes.
The schools, especially there are some school sites. Are the buildings for the schools gone? I haven't been to that site
Oh, are
yet.
you talking about the
are you
regular
looking at the
RFP?
list? Are you looking at the list in the PDF with the like instructions for the RFP?
That as well as I'm on the website itself with the live website where the markings are, the small dots that you showed us.
So for the 4 properties that are on this urban agriculture RFP, Walter, Reisterstown, Terrell, Walther, those are all
Empty
vacant
sites.
lots without any buildings.
Got it. Okay, so on the live map, there are some properties that are showing buildings on it. Okay, that's all right. These are the 4 that are up right now.
100% Google Street View imagery is very old. A lot of them do still show buildings that is not accurate.
I thought
And I
so.
will note
Thank you.
again that the PDF of the RFP instructions and details is not the correct one. It's the new one is being uploaded tomorrow. So if you're looking at the list of properties in that document, it is not these 4 properties we were just showing you. It will be
Oh,
by the end of the
okay.
day tomorrow is the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, and-
Christopher asks, will the price we can offer if we were interested in purchasing one of the lots be a significant factor in determining which RFP is selected, especially if other applicants offer significantly higher amounts for purchase? Without any guidelines in that regard, I imagine the offers may be all over the place. That is very fair. And in future, I think it may make sense for us to look at providing slightly more guidance in that regard. My impression is that we are more interested in, and I'm somewhat quoting Teresa Stevens herself here, but we're most interested in the end use and the outcome, right? We're very, very interested in what community members are genuinely excited about having in their neighborhood.
Yes.
That's the bigger factor for me, certainly. Like you might have seen, what are we scoring these proposals on? The amount of money that we're getting was not one of those things. It was community benefits and economic inclusion and is it a good plan and whatnot. That said, if somebody offered us $2 million for Terrell Place, like probably we would take it, but it's not about the money. Yeah, and like I said, you know, if you're a business and you can afford it, offer us more, because if you're, you know, a business and you're like, we made $250,000 at our farm, you know, like over here last year, and now we want this site and we'll give you $50 for it. You know, that's going to come off a lot differently than like, hey, you know, we're a small, like community-based group, or pull our money, we'll offer you, you know, a nominal fee. I'm not going to say a number, but yeah, it's context dependent, and I do imagine it may be all over the place, and I'm sorry that that is probably stressful. Aaliyah, you are correct. The Park Heights Plantation is extremely inspiring. Aegis, oh, sorry. Do the proposals remain confidential or are they shared publicly? This was a direct message. Hope you don't mind me saying it out loud. So I know the letter. So the review panel, all of the city workers will see it. But I know the letters of intent will be shared with communities. Should people assume, Kelly, to your knowledge, that their whole proposal package will be shared, you know, with the community groups if we are interested in potentially moving forward with an applicant?
No, we won't share financial documents. We would only share your plans, your proposed uses, that sort of information. We definitely don't share. We vet. If this goes the same way our typical RFP goes, we would, which I believe it is, we vet eligible applicants before we bring them to the community. So like we kind of you have to meet a threshold of viability. So like, we're going to go through those things, checking if you have judgments and liens, you know, looking at what your financing is, and making sure you're viable and making sure you've filled out the application. Another key point Abby mentioned, you know, don't leave any blanks. Because the complete application is part of meeting threshold. So you need to have something there. So we would like to see, you know, the community is only going to see what is actually available. Like, we don't want to bring them something that doesn't have a sustainable, viable thing, because, you know, there's nothing worse than getting someone really interested in a great idea and then not being able to execute it. So, you know, we do want to make sure that you're meeting that threshold before we present the options to the community, but we will just be basically presenting your ideas of what you plan to do with the site, not that financial stuff. That will be handled by the panel.
Okay, and with that, we have actually come to the end of the questions in the chat. Thank you also very much, Kelly, for that. Does anyone else have any questions that have not yet been addressed? Give it a minute of silence.
And again, as I recall, Kelly, all the questions that are being submitted at development@baltimorecity.gov by 3 p.m. on Friday will be posted on the website. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm sure that's what.
If we go back to that final slide with that email, that's a good place to
Yeah.
end on. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm just copying the questions from the chat. Give me 1 second.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Now, yeah, couple of final thoughts. Just again, thank you all so much for being here with us. Hi. Incredibly pleased at the turnout, and I hope that you'll spread the word. I hope that some of you, you know, have in fact managed to connect today. Partnerships are great and we welcome them. Word of advice, just thinking about those letters of intent and mistakes that I've seen well-meaning and very competent people in good faith make before. Don't harp on all the problems in a neighborhood and how you're going to come in and fix them. You know, if I'm at my community association meeting and we've just had reports on all the great work we're doing and we're feeling so encouraged and good, and we just started up this new nutrition program for kids, and then I get this letter that says everyone in this community is unhealthy and no one knows what healthy food is, and I am going to come in and save them. Yeah, I'm going to put that letter in the trash. Thank you very much. So just a note about tone. Any other final thoughts?
Just wish you all the best of luck. We're excited to see who applies. So thanks for attending.
And remember the deadline in September, September, November the 16th.
Oh, it's Quentin. Sorry.
November the 16th at 11:59 p.m.
Appreciate you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Do you want me to end meeting for all? Does anyone care? I'm gonna stop the recording.